The moment his worn debit card slipped back across the cafe counter with a soft, unforgiving beep, the entire world seemed to pause for her. The barista's polite smile faded just enough to reveal impatience, the line behind her shifted with quiet judgment, and the smell of fresh coffee suddenly felt cruel instead of comforting. She stood there frozen, clutching her phone like it might rescue her, unaware that this single, ordinary moment was about to quietly collide two lives from opposite ends of the world, one built on sacrifice, the other on secrets, and change them forever. If you believe that small acts of kindness can change destinies, take a second right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more stories about second chances and unexpected miracles. The man behind her noticed everything. He noticed the way her shoulders stiffened, how she tried to smile it off, how her fingers trembled as she apologized even though no one had accused her of anything. He was tall but slightly hunched, as if life had trained him to expect disappointment. His jacket was clean but old, the kind that had seen too many winters. He didn't hesitate or overthink it. He simply stepped forward and paid for her coffee, nodding once as if it were nothing at all, then moved aside to wait for his own order. No name, no lecture, no expectation. Just a quiet kindness offered without ceremony. What he didn't know was that the woman whose card had been declined was not struggling in the way he imagined. She wasn't careless or broke. She wasn't living paycheck to paycheck or fighting overdue bills. She was, in fact, the CEO of a global technology company worth hundreds of millions. Her wealth was real, her influence enormous, and her name recognized in boardrooms across continents. Yet she stood there that morning feeling smaller than she had in years, because the card that failed was not a reflection of her bank account, but a test she had chosen for herself. She had been watching him long before that moment. Weeks earlier, she had started coming to this cafe intentionally early, wearing simple clothes, leaving her driver behind, blending into a life she no longer lived. After years of wealth, power, and endless meetings, something inside her had gone quiet. Success had given her everything except warmth. She wanted to understand people again, to see who they were when no one was watching, to feel the world without the filter of privilege. And that was when she noticed him. Every morning, he arrived at nearly the same time. Always polite, always patient. He tipped even when his coffee was the cheapest thing on the menu. He helped an elderly man hold the door. He smiled at the barista even on days when his eyes looked tired. There was a gentleness about him that felt rare, almost endangered. She began to notice the small details, the way he read job postings on his phone, the way he paused before paying as if calculating every cent, the way he still chose kindness despite carrying the weight of uncertainty. His story, though she didn't know all of it yet, was one shaped by quiet endurance. He had once worked a stable job at a manufacturing plant until it shut down with barely any warning. Promises were broken, severance was thin, and opportunities vanished overnight. He took temporary work wherever he could, delivery shifts, warehouse nights, odd jobs that bruised his body but barely sustained his spirit. Pride kept him from asking for help. Responsibility kept him moving forward. Somewhere along the way, hope became something he carried silently instead of expecting out loud. That morning, when her card declined, it wasn't part of her plan. She had intended to pay, to leave, to observe, but the universe intervened. A technical glitch, a frozen transaction, a moment of vulnerability she couldn't hide behind money. And in that moment, he stepped in without knowing who she was or what she had. He didn't pause to judge whether she deserved help. He didn't look for recognition. He simply acted. The coffee itself tasted different that day. Warmer. Heavier. It lingered with her long after she left the cafe. Not because it was paid for, but because of what it represented. In a world obsessed with status, she had been helped by someone who believed decency didn't require permission. That single act cut deeper than any speech or charity gala ever had. She didn't approach him that day. Or the next. Instead, she kept watching. She saw him get rejection emails. She saw him sit alone, staring into space, gathering strength before another long shift. She saw him choose to help others even when his own life felt unstable. And something inside her began to ache, not pity, but respect. Slowly, she decided to change the rules of the test. She started conversations about nothing and everything, careful never to reveal too much. She learned that he lived modestly, that he sent money to his younger sister for college, that he believed life rewarded effort even when it took its time. She learned that he still believed in goodness, even though life had given him plenty of reasons not to. What he didn't know was that she had begun quietly rearranging the pieces of his future. Through discreet channels, she reviewed his work history, his skills, his unrealized potential. She saw a man who had been overlooked, not incapable. Someone whose circumstances had obscured his value. She instructed her team to create an opportunity, not as charity, but as a legitimate position that matched his abilities. A role that offered dignity, growth, and stability. She wanted him to earn it honestly, without knowing who was behind it. When the offer came, it felt unreal to him. A solid job, benefits, a future that didn't depend on luck alone. He assumed the universe had finally turned its face toward him. He didn't know that the woman from the cafe had quietly tipped the balance. Their connection deepened naturally. Walks after coffee turned into long conversations about purpose, fear, and resilience. He admired her humility, her curiosity, her way of listening as if every word mattered. She admired his strength, his patience, the way he treated people without expecting reward. She had spent years surrounded by powerful men who spoke loudly and cared little. He spoke softly and cared deeply. The truth came later, not as a dramatic reveal, but as a necessary moment of honesty. When he learned who she really was, the wealth, the company, the influence, it shook him. Not because he felt betrayed, but because he questioned his own worth. He wondered if he had been part of an experiment, a curiosity, a project. But she didn't defend herself with numbers or success. She explained the loneliness that comes with power, the way money can isolate instead of protect, the hunger to be seen as human rather than important. She told him the truth that mattered most. The reason she chose him had nothing to do with his struggle and everything to do with his kindness. The cafe moment remained the center of it all. That small, ordinary act that revealed who he was when no one was watching. He had given without knowing. He had helped without expecting. And that, to her, was priceless. As his life stabilized, his confidence returned. He stood taller. He dreamed again. And through it all, he never changed the core of who he was. He still held doors. He still tipped generously. He still believed people deserved patience. Success didn't soften him into complacency or harden him into pride. It simply gave him room to breathe. Near the end of this story, before the final moments settle into your heart, take a second and comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you think. Years later, long after that morning coffee, the memory remained vivid. Not because of the money involved, but because it proved something timeless. That kindness doesn't need context. That generosity doesn't ask for proof. That sometimes the smallest gesture can echo louder than the biggest achievements. If this story touched your heart, If it reminded you of the power of quiet goodness, please like this video, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach others who need hope. And as the screen fades, remember this: you never know who is watching, who you are inspiring, or how far a single act of compassion can travel. Sometimes, all it takes is paying for a cup of coffee to change a life forever.